Good afternoon. Welcome to the Charlotte Post C-Suite Conversation. We'd like to welcome Fred Whitfield, President of the Charlotte Hornets. Thank you for joining us this afternoon.
Thanks, Linda. It's great to be here.
I'd like to introduce you to our team. My name is Linda Johnson, and I will be your host today. Along with us, we have Gerald O. Johnson, our publisher. It's always a pleasure to have Gerald with us on our webinars. And we have Herbert White, our editor-in-chief. Thank you for joining us for the conversation.
Absolutely.
Yep. We have a little webinar housekeeping rules we'd like to go over. During this presentation, you can type your questions in the Q&A. We ask that the attendees will be kept on mute during the webinar, and please use the chat for asking questions. It will be monitored by Herb and editor-in-chief.
Q&A, not the chat.
The Q&A. And the chat will have notice messages for us as we send it out throughout the program. At this time, I'd like to introduce Gerald Johnson. He will share with you a bit about our organization and welcome you. Gerald, you can take it from here.
Thank you, Linda. Briefly, I'm going to go over the fact that we are the leading African-American media in North Carolina, and we are looking forward to this interview with Mr. Whitfield. As we go through this, all our C-suite conversations are brought to you at no charge because we love you. But at the end of the day, we still love your support through donations, subscriptions, and sponsorships. Our host, Linda, will put in the chat the link for donating and subscribing if you would like to do that. I'm assuming you have that link, Linda, that you can throw in there, or you're making me look bad. But then, the newspaper as a source to communicate with us with things that you would like to let us know. And having said that, I'm going to move on to our chief executive editor to sort of get us started with the C-suite. And so, Chief, get us started here.
Thank you so much, Gerald. Welcome, everybody. C-Suites is a conversation between the Black community and folks who are in positions of power in some of North Carolina's biggest corporations. And we are pleased today to have Mr. Whitfield here, and he is our fourth C-Suites conversational. And we've talked to folks who run North Carolina's community college system. We've talked to the CEO of one of North Carolina's major hospital companies and a major nonprofit. And so what we do with C-Suites is we take the conversation out of the C-Suites and put it in the streets, where we're talking about things on a local level, where we get to understand where these executives are coming from, their life story, and how leadership looks today in corporate America. And so I'm not going to go any further with this so that we can get right down to business with today's guest of honor, Mr. Fred Whitfield.
Fred, I'm going to start this out simply because of the way I like to start all these C-suites out. We like to talk about the career path that got you to where you are today. And my first love is started off where you started off, which is Greensboro, and just tell us about what it was like growing up in Greensboro and how you got through high school with your athletic ability and everything. And then as you talk about that, I will possibly interrupt you to throw another question at you, but that's just how we want to get started.
Yeah, sure, Gerald. And again, thanks so much to you and Linda and Herb for having me here. As you can imagine, growing up in Greensboro, I grew up on the Carolina Peacemaker, and Mr. Kilimanjaro, Dr. Kilimanjaro, and his family were certainly an integral part of our community. I'm 62, so I'm sure you know, having grown up in Greensboro, which was the home of the sit-ins. My mom is a Bennett Bell, a graduate of Bennett, and my dad is a graduate of North Carolina A&T, and they never left Greensboro. And the two of them were very involved in the Black community in Greensboro, very involved in our home church, Providence Baptist Church. My dad was a postal worker, and my mom was a first grade school teacher for 35 years or so. But what I'd say is, my brother Charles and I were very fortunate because we had a unique background. Back in that day, it was not often that you found two parents in a home, both of whom had college degrees and both of whom had master's degrees. And both our parents had master's degrees from North Carolina A&T. And they really stressed education as being the core of what my brother and I needed to be focused on, in addition to sports, which we loved. Like every other young person, I was, longing to be a professional athlete, longing to be an NBA player. And unfortunately, like 99.9% of us didn't quite have that skill level to be a pro athlete. But what I did focus on was the academic side. Fell in love with math, English, and science as a young kid. Loved to read, and found education to be the piece that kept me motivated as I grew up as a junior high school, a middle school basketball player, and a high school basketball player at Southeast Guilford High School. I was fortunate to receive a college scholarship, a full basketball scholarship, to play at Campbell University, which is a school that had at the time the largest basketball camp in the country. And there were a lot of, I don't want to name the older names like a Press Maravich or John Wooden, who would come every year, but it was one of the most renowned basketball schools in the country. And because of that experience from the age of 8 to 18 going every summer, my parents would take me there, drop me off. I got to know Coach Danny Roberts, who was my college coach, who recruited me to play at Campbell. I was honored to play on a full basketball scholarship. That allowed me to go and earn a degree in economics. I was an economics major in undergrad. Coach Roberts also gave me the opportunity to come back after I came home for a year and worked as an internal auditor with Burlington Industries, which was the largest textile company in the world at the time. After a year, he allowed me to come back to Campbell as his graduate assistant basketball coach and work on earning my master's degree in business. I was able to earn that master's degree in 2 years and then left Campbell. I had my MBA, had my undergraduate degree, and I joined what used to be Southern Bell or Bell South, one of the Bell companies. I see you smiling, Gerald. You remember Bell South. But I was in sales and marketing, and I'm so thankful for that experience because it allowed me to learn how to sell. I went through a 6-week intensive sales training program with Bell South. And to this day, when I'm selling corporate sponsorships or selling premium season tickets or, anything of the like, I still look back on some of those skills I learned and use them every day. I did that for 2 years and, certainly wanted to try and find a way to get back involved in sports and also try to find a way to tie my business background into a career around sports. And I thought at the time I wanted to be a sports agent, a sports attorney. And as I did more and more due diligence on what that world was all about, I realized that if I didn't want to be what we used to call the runner, which is basically the person that would go and recruit players and then deliver them to the representative, the lawyer or the agent, I really need to get a legal background. And so I decided to go back to law school and got accepted both at Campbell University School of Law and North Carolina Central School of Law. Having been down in Bowie's Creek for 5 years at Campbell, wanted to have a different experience and thought it'd be great to, experience North Carolina Central University, HBCU, where my brother was actually an undergrad and playing college basketball. Thought that'd be a great change for me. And so I enrolled at North Carolina Central School of Law, and was able and was very fortunate to have my classmates vote me in as first year class representative to represent our class with the Student Bar Association. Stayed involved in that student government all the way through law school, and actually was elected president of the Student Bar Association, which is the equivalent of the Student Government Association, my third year law school, and graduated from law school. Knew I wanted to find a way to get involved in sports, but decided initially to go back home to Greensboro and just hang my shingle. And with my parents being so involved and engaged in the community, I filled their pockets, my dad's pockets and my mom's pocketbook with business cards. And as they were out in the community and running into people that needed legal services, I had created my own small general law practice that I opened in Greensboro right out of law school.
Oh, wait, hold on just a minute, Fred. Hold on.
Sure.
Now, you were, what type of lawyer were you when you were in Greensboro and doing law services?
I was the kind of lawyer that represented you if you walked in my door with a legal problem. So, I had in all seriousness, Gerald, I had a general practice, but I'd say a majority or a big part of my practice was in district court. I would go to district court in the morning, represent 10 or 15 speeders, and work out a resolution that would help them make that speeding ticket not cause them quite as much pain in their pocketbook going forward. I represented some misdemeanor criminals that came in with problems. I did a lot of personal injury work. I did some wills in the States. Just had a general practice. Okay. And, you know, when you're trying to keep the office open and get the bills paid, you know, you couldn't turn down too many clients that walked in the door. But to your point, Gerald, I was always interested in sports law. And I was very fortunate that two of the largest sports management companies in the world, IMG, International Management Group, and Advantage International, along with Lynn Elmore, who's a former NBA player who got his law degree at Harvard and has started representing athletes. You know, they approached me about potentially joining their firm and representing athletes. And here I was, Gerald, Herb, and Linda thinking, I'm this young hotshot lawyer that's got his MBA and has an economics degree, that they're hiring me because they think I can add all this value and bring in new clients. And lo and behold, the last question at each interview was, hey, if we hire you, do you think we can potentially steal Michael Jordan away from David Falk and have him become our client? We think you're the right person because of your long-time relationship with him to help us do that. And so obviously at that point, Michael and I were just very, very close friends. I was not doing any work for him. As he and I discussed it, it was certainly a conflict of interest for me to accept a job under those circumstances. And so fortunately, David Falk, who represented Michael at the time and had represented Michael out of college, offered me the opportunity to join his firm, Falk Associates Management Enterprises, as one of the 4 lawyers in his firm representing athletes. And so at that point, I joined his firm. He allowed me to stay in North Carolina and basically work the Atlantic Coast Conference, and also because of relationships I had with a couple of young athletes that were playing in the Big Ten, the opportunity to try and sign some players that played in the Big Ten. And so that's really how my sports law career got going. And I was with David Falk's firm for about 5 years before I left there. When David sold his firm to SFX, I was not a partner in the firm. I was just one of the lawyers there. And as part of the sale, the athletes that I represented, Juwan Howard out of Michigan and Sharon Wright out of Clemson, I had 8 or 9 NFL players. They all became SFX clients. And I was not quite sure where my career was headed, but I was very fortunate that Nike approached me with an opportunity to join them and oversee all of their pro basketball business in the Eastern Conference. And they'd again allow me to stay right here in North Carolina and work out of my law office and manage about 150 NBA players that were Nike athletes at the time.
So how did that connection between you and Nike take place in terms of?
Yeah, it's a great question, Gerald. Over the years, working with David Falk's firm, clearly being close friends with Michael and him being one of our clients. When I was with Falk Associates Management Enterprises, we represented about 40 of the top NBA players in the world. Michael was just one of them. We represented Patrick Ewing, Dikembe Mutombo, Alonzo Mourning, Muggsy Bogues. I mean, the list just goes on and on and on. And as a part of that, I often got a chance to go out to Nike and visit their campus right outside Portland, either with Michael or with David Falk or with other clients that we were representing when Nike wanted them to become endorsers for their company. And so because of those deep relationships that I was able to build at Nike, when they saw an opportunity to give me a chance to join their company, saw an opportunity to leave me right here on the East Coast, where I had built a lot of relationships, both at the collegiate level, the grassroots level, and the pro level, that it was a unique sort of marriage that had a lot of synergy, that it made sense for them, not only to allow me to work with their players, but because of my legal background, it allowed me to negotiate the upcoming endorsement deals with potential new Nike clients. Also allowed me to oversee all of our college scouting because I was a former college coach, former college player, be able to put together a draft report and make a recommendation to Phil Knight, our founder and CEO at the time, on who we should bring in as our next young crop of Nike endorsers. And there was just a lot of I'd say synergy between us. And so that was a very unique opportunity. One that I was able to really use all of my educational background in. And, once players were signed and became part of the Nike family, I was charged with working with our internal marketing team on how we build out our new athletes' brands and how we get them involved in our Nike marketing plan. And so it was a lot of fun for me. And I was in that role for about 5 years. And I'd say 2.5 years into that role, Nike allowed me to move here to Charlotte and actually open up a small office over on East Morehead Street in the Morehead Place building. I was basically there by myself. I was a season ticket holder with the old Hornets franchise, and I had about 8 of their players were my Nike athletes. And when other teams would come in and play the old Hornets, I'd see all my other players that were playing on the opposing teams. And so it was just a great situation. I'd go to Portland once a month for managers meetings and stay connected with senior management at Nike. But to be able to do that and be right here at home was a lot of fun. And so as we think back, or you think back on the old little Penny Hardaway commercials, Penny was one of my leading Nike pro basketball athletes. Alonzo Mourning was also one of my young athletes. Juwan Howard, who I represented as his attorney, was now one of my Nike athletes. And so to be able to work with them along with Michael, who at the time clearly was the biggest Nike brand athlete, to be able to be involved and engaged in all of their marketing efforts and their commercial shoots and things like that was a lot of fun. So I was there for 5 years. And then when Michael bought into the Washington Wizards in 2000 as a minority owner, he was going to be responsible for overseeing all the basketball operations at the Wizards. And Mr. Poland, Abe Poland, was the owner of the team. Michael and his ownership group, partnership group, owned a small piece of the team. But Michael was going in as president of basketball operations. He asked me if I considered leaving Nike pro basketball and joining him in the front office of the Wizards on the basketball side as director of player personnel, overseeing all of our college scouting, as our internal attorney, negotiating our player contracts, and also our capologist, managing the salary cap on how we paid our players within the system that the players and the owners had negotiated as part of the collective bargaining agreement. So I agreed to do that in 2000. And for the first year, Michael was our president of basketball operations. And he and I and Rod Higgins, who you may remember, Gerald, was here with us. And also Wes Unseld Sr. really made up the front office on the basketball side of the Wizards. We had a horrible salary cap situation and really need to clean that cap up. And one of those things we need to do is find a way to move Juwan Howard and his big contract. And, he's like a little brother to me at that point. But he was our highest paid player at $18 million a year. Rod Strickland was making $10 million a year. And Mitch Richmond was making $10 million a year. So $38 million between 3 players, and the salary cap was at $42 million at that time. So we had a lot of work to do to be able to create more salary cap space. And we were very fortunate to be able to move Juwan down to Dallas and put him in a great situation to move Mitch Richmond out to the West Coast and create a buyout with Rod Strickland. And that's what really, I think, laid the groundwork for the Wizards to have salary cap room. During that first year, Mr. Poland spent a lot of time really soliciting Michael to come back as a player. Felt like if he came back as a player at 38 years old, it would energize our organization, be able to change the business model and the business vitality of that organization that had become pretty stale. After working out and losing about 25 pounds over the summer, Michael agreed to come back right in the fall, right the week after 9/11 in 2001. And Michael agreed to come back and play for 2 years, agreed to take his salary and donate it to the families of the 9/11 victims. And instantly overnight, our ticket sales doubled, the prices doubled. We were sold out every game, home and away. Corporate sponsorships went through the roof. Suites were all sold out. And the Wizards at the time went from a team that was struggling financially to one that became profitable almost overnight because of one player. Michael played those 2 years with the Wizards. We sold out every game, all 2 years. He made the All-Star team there, played every game his last year, even though he was getting his knee drained literally after every game. By this point, he was 40 years old playing, still averaged 20 points a game. And then unfortunately, at the end of that season, Mr. Poland decided that, rather than bringing Michael back in as president of basketball, as he had promised, decided to move in a different direction and not bring Michael back into his role. And I stayed, at the Wizards for several more months. I was under contract and certainly helped them get through the next draft. And then at that point, we parted ways with each other. And then at that point, I was given the opportunity to go back to Nike in a brand newly created position in a small little company at the time that was called Jordan Brand. At the time, Jordan Brand was about a $300 million a year company. We were aspiring to try and get that brand to $1 billion a year company. But with Michael never playing again and being retired forever, we really had to put together a sound strategy on what it was going to take to either grow our brand to be $1 billion a year brand or let it roll back up into Nike basketball and be a $100 million a year brand. We put our heads together and created a strategy to bring non-basketball athletes into our brand. Brought Derek Jeter over as a Jordan Brand baseball player. Brought in Warren Sapp and trying to think of all the names. Marvin Harrison. Brought in some younger NBA players at the time, Jason Kidd and Gary Payton, to try and Reggie Miller, just trying to bring these young guys in to keep the brand vibrant, and then also added a number of colleges, brought Georgetown University in, Cal Berkeley in, North Carolina A&T in as our historically Black college and university, in as one of our 5 colleges to really sort of create a halo effect for the brand that would allow us to sustain over time. That was in 2003. I stayed in that role 2003 to 2006. In those 3 years, we grew our brand from a $300 million a year brand to a $900 million a year brand in those 3 years. And then in 2006, July of 2006, Bob Johnson offered me the opportunity to come here and become president and chief operating officer of the then Bobcats several months after Michael became his partner in the Bobcats and became head of basketball operations as a part of his ownership. So I arrived here in July of 2006 as president and chief operating officer and have remained here, fortunately, the entire time. As I'm sure you know, Bob Johnson decided to sell majority interest to Michael in 2010. And, I was very fortunate that Michael allowed me to maintain my role, maintain my senior leadership team, and keep the momentum going that we're starting to build and really turn around an organization which, when I arrived here, we were losing, this is very public, we were losing about $30 million a year. And we had put together a plan and strategy and had really gotten this community to start supporting and embracing us. And by the time Michael bought our organization, we were pretty close to break even and starting to become profitable. And so fortunately, in the last 11 years, we've turned our organization, our business around dramatically. We have become profitable every year. As you know, we transitioned from the Bobcats brand in 2015 back to the old Hornets brand that had so much equity built up in this community because of the great work the prior Hornets organization had done, both on the court as a great 50-win team on the floor, but also the great work that the prior Hornets team under Carl Shear's guidance and others had built in the community. So we attached and grabbed a lot of that equity. Having Michael as our hometown hero owner that agreed that we were going to get more involved and engaged in the community, I think was one of the reasons, Gerald, Herb, and Linda, that you all selected our organization as a newsmaker of the year. And I think it was 2015, the year we transitioned back to the Hornets. We were honored to receive that award from the Charlotte Post. But it's been a great ride, and our business continues to grow. Coming, off of this great season, even though we played in the pandemic with no fans initially during the beginning of the season, and then limited fans the middle of the season, to have a young, dynamic, up-and-coming star like LaMelo Ball win Rookie of the Year, and watch our other young players, Miles Bridges and P.J. Washington, Devontae Graham, be able to continue to improve, and then have Mitch Kupchak and our basketball operations staff go out and bring a Gordon Hayward in to really give our organization credibility from a veteran standpoint, really has us and our fans excited about next season.
Now, Herb, I could ask a couple more questions, but I'm gonna let you in here. Go ahead.
Gee, thanks. When you, obviously you have this varied background in terms of law, marketing, basketball, all kinds of parts of basketball. But talk about leadership in a company that is a $1 billion entity within a really many $billion entity, the NBA, or Basketball Incorporated, if you would. Talk about what leadership looks like from your standpoint with the Hornets organization and how it fits in the basketball ecosystem.
That's a great question, Herb, and one that, I've spent a lot of time on over my career in trying to really pick the brain of others that I really admire and think are great leaders, and really try to emulate them. I'd have to say I learned so much from Phil Knight at Nike, having the opportunity to work closely with he and Larry Miller and Howard White, and really watching the way they took and built a company like Nike to what now is a $50 billion a year company. Learned so much about, surrounding myself with the brightest and the best, letting them do their jobs, not tell them who to hire or who to fire if there needs to be a parting of ways. Let them help with putting together the strategy, having an all-in approach, and really kind of staying out of the way. And I think, a lot of it comes down to trust. Certainly you have to trust your leadership team that you work with. And I can't tell you how fortunate I am, number one, to have a great owner that trusts me and allows me to run the day-to-day operation of this organization, to have a great managing partner in Curtis Polk, who's Michael's financial guy, to have the trust to say, hey, Fred, we can talk once a week if you need to, but you're running that company. And then having a great senior leadership team that I've had, since I've been here. Had very few of my senior leaders move on unless they got better opportunities. I can think of about 3 that got recruited away. But when I think about, Seth Bennett, who runs all of our marketing, he's been with me since 2006. When I think about Donna Julian, who's our general manager, executive vice president that runs the Spectrum Center for us, she and I got here the same year in 2006. When I think about James Jordan, who's our chief operating officer and Michael's brother, he's been with us for 10 years and has elevated into the COO role. Jacob Gallagher, who is our chief revenue officer, started out as an intern in 2006 and has grown all the way through and been promoted to become our chief revenue officer. I mean, I could just go down and down the list, and and others that have been here for 8 or 10 years and then given an opportunity to become like a Pete Gwelly, the chief commercial officer of the New York Giants, or Flavio Hampstead, who was recruited away to the San Jose Sharks. I've been very fortunate to have had really, really strong leaders that not only lead themselves, but also have recruited a very diverse base of teammates here that think differently, that look differently, that challenge us, that want independence, that want to be a part of the decision-making process. And we've allowed that to happen. And so, you know, the accolades that our organization has received, oftentimes, you know, I may receive an award personally for something that our organization did, but it really has been all about the team. And, you know, I look at myself really in a basketball analogy, sort of the head coach of the team. And I need a great offensive coordinator. And I've got one of those in James Jordan, who's overseeing, you know, all of our revenue and all of that, and a great defensive coordinator, and Travis Ferguson, who's our CFO, and helping manage, you know, how much money we spend and help us manage our wallets around our organization. Travis, another one that's been here 12 or 13 years. And so when I think about leadership and when I think about the leaders that I admire and respect the most, they all have surrounded themselves with really smart, talented people that were diverse, that at times the people they've surrounded themselves with are smarter than they are in certain areas of the business. And you just got to accept the fact that no one is going to know and understand everything. And I think the smartest leaders understand what they know and what they don't know. And what they don't know, they try to learn and they embrace others' thoughts and ideas and let them lead. And that's what I've tried to do. And then last but not least, and one of the things that we've always been focused on is the community. And I believe that a leader should be involved and engaged in the community and nonprofit work. So I've been very fortunate that I've been given the opportunity coming in town to serve on the Metropolitan YMCA Board of Directors, the City Center Partners Board of Directors, the Charlotte Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors, and then in recent years, been a part or a member of the executive committee of the Charlotte Executive Leadership Council, which is 24 CEOs in town that meet to try and do everything we can to make Charlotte a better place for all of us to live, work, and thrive. And then also serve on the executive committee of both the Charlotte Sports Foundation, which is out doing everything we can to bring large sporting events to Charlotte to really push the economic viability of our entire community around sports. And then also the Charlotte Regional Business Alliance, which is the marriage of the old Charlotte Chamber of Commerce and the Charlotte Regional Partnership. The opportunity to serve on the executive committee there for the last 6 or 7 years, I think has been an honor for me. But I think it's also a duty that leaders have in giving back to the community in a nonprofit way to try and do all they can to make the community better.
Okay. Now, we also have some questions that are coming in from our viewers, and we love this part of it. From Jewel Hoover. Thank you, Jewel, for your question. Of your myriad experiences, what would you tell young people today to consider when making career choices?
Wow, great question, Jewel. And I know Jewel, and very fortunate to serve with her also on another nonprofit board, Foundation of the Carolinas, and she's our chair there. But when I think about young people and their careers, they really have to think about what they're passionate about in life. You know, I was passionate about sports. I was passionate about business, about math. I loved economics. You know, in trying to find a career, I wanted to see if I could create an opportunity for myself where going to work every day didn't feel like work. It didn't feel like something that I didn't look forward to when I got up in the morning. And that's hard to do. But I think at a very young age, you have to really think about, you know, what you're passionate about and try to be as strategic as you can about how do you get to that point of creating an opportunity for yourself that people feel like you can add value to their company or companies in an area that won't feel like you're going to work. And I certainly had a couple summer jobs in high school and in college that made me know that I didn't want to do certain things because I dreaded getting up in the morning to go work at Manpower and work at a steel factory shoveling sand every day. Not
Yeah.
that there's anything wrong with that at all, but I just knew for me, I wouldn't be passionate every morning about getting up and going to do that. And so, I encourage young people to do what my parents taught me: get as much education as you can, and then figure it out. I'd say for me, and it may be completely different than the other 29 team presidents in the NBA, I don't think I'd get this opportunity if I don't have a law degree and my MBA. I know most of my counterparts in the league don't have one or both, but I think I was given that opportunity by Bob Johnson because he probably said, you know what, Fred, you haven't run the business side of an NBA team, but you got enough education. If you surround yourself by some people smarter than you that understand what you don't understand, and you find the right people at the NBA to mentor you, maybe you can figure it out. And so, I truly believe that I wouldn't have gotten this opportunity, and Bob wouldn't have given me this opportunity, and Michael certainly, I don't think, would have kept me in this role, because that's not the norm. When teams change ownership, more often than not, the senior executive team changes. And so I do believe that the educational piece, even though you use much of it subconsciously, it becomes part of your DNA and the way you think and the way you problem solve day in and day out. But I would encourage young people to really, look for something that they're passionate about, whatever it is, and then try and see if there's a way they can create a career opportunity out of that.
Hey, question for you, Fred.
Sure.
You consider yourself a basketball guy who's passionate about business, or are you a business guy who's passionate about basketball and sports and entertainment?
You know what? That's a great question, Herb, because I often ask myself that. My office here at the Spectrum Center overlooks the practice court. So I absolutely love watching practice every day while I'm here working on deals. And so I think I'm a hybrid of the two. I'm so thankful that Bob allowed me the opportunity to run the business side, because if not, I'm sure I would have stayed on the basketball side and tried to pursue becoming a general manager or president of basketball operations. But the thing I love about my role here is I get to sit in the draft meetings. I get to sit in and hear what Mitch and Buzz and Michael are thinking about on draft night. I don't ever interject my opinion on who we should draft or who we should trade for or who we should hire as a coach. But it's great to be in those conversations and understand the game and the rationale and reason behind why a lot of decisions are made. But I think deep down, my core is business. And, I was a nerd in high school and in college. I loved math, but I was a basketball guy that loved to play the game as well. So really the role I'm in now, I think, really fits, what I could be passionate about day in and day out as I come in and have built my career.
Well, how often do you suit up and go on the practice court and play?
None at all. Yeah. So funny. When I was in Washington, which was 20 years ago, hard to believe, I started in 2000 with the Wizards. I mean, I was 42 years old, still get down on the court, run up and down, and your mind still tells your body, tells you can do what you used to be able to do on the court, but your body just doesn't want to cooperate. So as I saw my friends, trying to play in the mid 40s and having ACLs and blowing their Achilles out, I said, at the most, I'm going to play horse, because I could always shoot the basketball. So I was always in the game. But running up and down the court, I don't know if I want to be on, on crutches or, on, using a wheelchair to get around when I got to keep running our business.
We got Joy Page who wants to ask a question about.
Sure.
Says congratulations on a wonderful career, and we are so glad to have you as a C-suite leader in Charlotte. What types of professional development activities do you participate in to continue to hone your skills as a leader? Books, podcasts, conferences, etc.
Yeah, that's a great question. And Joy has been a long time friend and has done such great work in our Charlotte community. So it's great to hear from Joy. One of the things that, again, I've been so fortunate that people have given me opportunities throughout my career. And one of the things I've been very fortunate of is our prior commissioner, the late David Stern, really embraced me when he recommended me to Bob Johnson as a potential candidate for this role here. Once I got this role, he allowed me to sit on several subcommittees in the NBA. One is the Team Advisory Council, which is a small group of 8 team presidents, 8 out of 30, that meet monthly with the senior leadership team of the NBA and talk about where our league is going. And our commissioner, Adam Silver, has allowed me to continue to serve on that subcommittee. Also, the NBA created a committee called the Basketball and Business Committee, which is 5 general managers and 5 team presidents of business on a group to talk about how business and basketball can be better integrated to make our league better. I've been fortunate over the last 5 years to have a seat as a part of that committee as well. I also attend our sales and marketing meetings at the NBA, which are really like breakout sessions of learning, how we become a best practice organization, and we take 10 or 12 of our staff members along with us. And then the other group I've been fortunate to be a part of is the NBA's Global Diversity and Inclusion Council, which is about 10 of us, or 12 of us, 2 team presidents and several other senior executives across the NBA, the WNBA, and the Gatorade League, the G League. To have a role as a part of that group has also been great. And then for me, the development piece is learning from other great leaders. And so I spent a lot of time talking to the Jesse Curitons of the world, from Novant, the Gene Woods, who I'm glad that I'm coming before he does his C-suite conversation, I think, right?
No, you're too late. He was late.
Oh, I didn't want to follow him. And then Malcolm Coley, who's the managing partner of Ernst & Young here, and our 2 college presidents, Dan Lugo from Queens and our president from Johnson C. Smith. We built Ambrister, built a great relationship, and we spend a lot of time amongst ourselves as much as we can, having these great conversations about leadership. I think about Keith Cockrell, who's just come in as a president of Bank of America in this region, spending time with him. And then, being in that environment, Joy, of being at a part of the Charlotte Executive Leadership Council and being around the table with Brian Moynihan as our chairperson is just rolling off, and the other 23 or 4 CEOs. That's an education every time we have a meeting. I learned so much, whether it's Frank Harrison, Coca-Cola Consolidated, Carl Amata from Novant, or, I could just go down the list, Gene from Atrium, Bank of America, Wells Fargo's represented there. That is a real learning experience for me every time I sit in the room with such really brilliant leaders that have so much to offer.
And now there's a question from Pamela Kelly. So many of our young African-American males see a career in sports. Now that college athletes can market their name as a brand, do you talk to young audiences, and do you advise them on their off-court behavior, since it can affect their marketability in college and on the professional level?
That's a great question. And, it doesn't just start now, because, young athletes can market themselves with their name, identity, and likeness. It really goes back to the very beginning, the core principles that, my parents helped raise me on, and I know, most parents are raising young people on. How you carry yourself really is going to impact your career, whether it's marketing yourself, building a career, how people embrace you in the community, saying yes, please, thank you, all those type things that, hopefully most of us are learning, really will impact your future, and whether you're going to be marketable to get a job, or whether you're going to be marketable as a brand yourself. And so I think, we've always tried to teach those core principles to young people. I haven't mentioned my Achievements Unlimited basketball school, which I started back in Greensboro back in 1985 with the help of Ralph Sampson, Johnny Dawkins, David Henderson, and Michael Jordan. We'll be hosting our 36th annual Achievements Unlimited, I can't say annual because we had to miss last year, but our 36th Achievements Unlimited basketball school next week here in Charlotte. We did 25 in Greensboro. This will be our 11th one in Charlotte. We'll have a lot of young kids from the Stratford Richardson Y, the McCrory Y, the Boys and Girls Club, the Police Activities League, that all come in and don't pay. They come on scholarship and get a week. And part of that week is teaching these young people how important education is, how important it is to stay drug-free, teach them life skills. We've got a great NBA math hoops game that's going to be a part of our week of fundamental basketball instruction. And this will be our chance to add to our 10,000 plus young kids, most of whom underserved and ordinarily wouldn't get a chance to participate in a basketball school, and then have some of these corporate CEOs or very senior executives that I just mentioned come out and talk to these young people about how they got to the top of their career and became CEOs or COOs, and then also bring in some of our young athletes that, NBA players, NFL players. Hopefully our NASCAR driver, Bubba Wallace, will be able to make it out and join us. Spoke to Harold Varner yesterday, who is a Jordan Brand athlete, not on the PGA Tour, over the British Open this week. He's been out to speak to our kids the last 3 years, and he's looking forward to hopefully getting out next week. But we want our kids to really learn that how you build your brand as a young person from 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, all the way up will really influence the rest of your life and how people view you and want you to be a part of what they're doing.
You just answered your brother's question, so we'll skip that.
Well, hey, by the way, Gerald, my brother and Trip Wellborn, who was an All-American in Michigan, were in my first class back in 1985 of Achievements Unlimited basketball school. So he knows well. He was, I think, a 10th grader our first year back in 1985.
Hey, and Brandon, let me throw in a shameless plug for your brother, too, who is an inductee to the North Carolina Music Hall of Fame.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is. So, yes, he'll be inducted on October 21st, the day before our mom's 90th birthday. So we'll have a great celebration that weekend.
So are you musically inclined too? I mean, we talked about Keith Woods, but are you?
Yeah, I am. I listen to great music. No, it's interesting. I've always, I'm 10 years older than my brother. And so he was in the first grade when I was in the 12th grade. I started school early. But I always listened to jazz, which going back home and spending time with him, he became a young person, even in undergrad and college, that knew jazz better than anybody else in the CD store he worked in. And I really believe that helped him build his music career and become a specialist, such that when he came with the concept of idea of starting Hidden Beach Recordings, brought the concept and idea to me, brought Steve McKeever along as an executive that had run Mojazz, for me to introduce to Michael Jordan as an investor in what became Hidden Beach, and Jill Scott and Mike Phillips and the rest. I really believe that I played some small part in my brother's musical success. And so I can't tell you how proud I am of him, that he's been selected and done great work here locally with Anthony Hamilton and his management team, Eli Davis. And I'm just so proud that he's being recognized with an honor like this.
Excellent. And so now here's a question from Christopher Moxley. Can you speak from your perspective on the importance of relationships in personal and business success?
Yes, I can. And Chris is a great young man. And, he and I have spent, an enormous amount of time, talking about how important relationships are and how important it is to not only have those relationships, but also nurture those relationships and also make sure those relationships are reciprocal. No one wants to be in any sort of one-sided relationship. Doesn't matter what you're talking about. And so as people, come to you and they need your help, I believe that you should try to help people any way you can, anytime you can. And I believe that there'll come a time where the tables are going to turn. You never know when and you never know who, that you're going to need help from someone. And so, as we bring our young interns in, even here at the Hornets organization, every semester, I make it a point to meet with our interns when they come in the door and when they leave, because I really want to impress upon them how important it is that the further they get along in their careers and the more successful they get, the more they have an obligation to reach back and help that next young person reach their dreams. And that's how that whole cycle, I think, should work. And I think those relationships that you build over time are what create opportunities that you aren't looking for. And I'm certainly one of those that feels so fortunate that people knocked on my door and provided me an opportunity to join Nike Pro Basketball, Howard White, saying, hey, I know, David just sold, Falk Associates to SFX. What do you think about, working with us at Nike and us creating this unique role for you at Nike? Would have never happened if I didn't have a relationship with Howard White. And then, Michael provided me the opportunity to leave Nike basketball and join him at the Wizards. Would have never happened if we didn't have a relationship and trust, and him see my work ethic and think I can add value to what he's trying to do to be successful. And I believe these relationships that we build over time, across all specters, are critically important to our long-term success and happiness.
And from Thomas Clark, a very succinct question/statement: overcoming racism, your experiences.
Wow, great question. I think I mentioned I grew up in Greensboro, probably not a more racially charged city in the South. In the late 60s and 70s with the riots and the sit-ins, and people are forgetting about November 3rd of 1979, where there was a Klan Nazi shooting right in Morningside Homes, where many of my young teammates that I grew up with and played with lived. And then just, being in that first class of busing as an 8th grader, and being bused, to, a different side of Greensboro, to a more diverse group of students, fellow students, certainly was a learning experience for me. And then going to Southeast Guilford High School, which was in one of the more affluent white areas of Greensboro, and very few African Americans or Blacks at Southeast High School, having to figure out how to matriculate through both academically and sports-wise. And, having an unfortunate circumstance with one of my coaches who, didn't particularly embrace the Black players on the team, having to work with my parents and work through that strategically and not have it ruin my high school career. Those are just real life experiences, I think, that have helped me be able to grow in my career and understand how to deal with different people and people that have different ideological beliefs than I do, and then how to try to bring people together that may not see a lot of common ground in the way they think, but try to have people listen to each other. I think it's what I've tried to do and learn from the experiences that I had growing up in Greensboro, as at the time that I did and the experiences that I did, and having the parents that my brother and I were fortunate to have that had those real tough conversations. And then growing up in a church like Providence Baptist Church, where, we had real leaders that we could look up to as role models that showed us the way to not let anything that happened negatively against us that may be perceived as racist stop us or hold us back. We were really taught to find a way to be able to navigate those challenges and try and make the best out of unfortunate negative situations that might happen to come our way unfairly.
Yeah. And from Joel Cogdell, what would you say is the most challenging part of your role leading the Hornets organization on a daily basis? And I'll even throw in, that there's more to the organization than just the Hornets, because you are also responsible for managing Spectrum Center.
Yeah, another great question. And Joel's a great friend as well, one of the executives at Lowe's now with my brother. But Joel, I don't look at it as challenges. I look at it as opportunities. When I got here, to your point, Herb, when I got here now 16 years ago, we weren't focused on the Spectrum Center, or back at the time, Bobcats Arena, before we were able to sell naming rights to Time Warner Cable, and then, them converted to Spectrum Center. We weren't focused on having 100+ non-basketball events in our building, or pro basketball events. Now we're focused on, trying to have our building, busy 100 nights a year with concerts to hit every demographic, college basketball tournaments. We just announced the Jumpman Invitational that'll be coming here in December of 2022. We've got the NCAA men's basketball tournament coming in 2024. We're starting a roster of concerts and family shows at full capacity starting in August. So it is, Hornet Sports and Entertainment. And I see it as an opportunity that we can continue growing our business. Certainly, our product on the floor is improving now, but we've only been in the playoffs 3 times since I got here 15 years ago. But we maintain a positive attitude. Our fan base has stayed patient with us. Our corporate sponsorship base has continued to support us, and the community has supported us. And so I see it as an opportunity that we can continue growing our business as our young team continues to improve on the floor. We're excited. We're probably going to have 2,000 new full season ticket holders this off season that we're adding to an 85% renewal rate of 2 years ago. So I expect, us to have 11,000 or so full season ticket holders, and a lot of energy in this building every night. We'll average over 16,000, 17,000 fans a night. And then all these major concerts, family shows, Harlem Globetrotters are coming in here, they're still around, and they were coming to Greensboro back when I was a kid. But it really is about an opportunity to continue growing, not just the Charlotte Hornets, but Hornet Sports and Entertainment, and having our organization be a huge economic stimulator for our entire region, and particularly our uptown corridor.
How did COVID, going through COVID, impact the business, and how did you all manage getting through that?
Joe, that's a great question. COVID hurt all of us. And, what I'd say is, and I certainly give a lot of credit to James Jordan, our Chief Operating Officer, because he's a 31-year decorated military retiree who is very regimented. He's very oriented to process. And he and I discussed and came up with the process of having our senior executive team have task force meetings twice a week so that we stay connected via Zoom throughout the whole year and a half of COVID. I have our department meetings via Zoom and make sure we all stay connected. Do events with our season ticket holders and our sponsors virtually. Have them engaged and be able to watch things like a recap of The Last Dance, which was Michael's documentary. Be able to have Esty Portnoy and Curtis Polk talk about how that documentary was created, to really keep our fans engaged, our corporate sponsors engaged. We got out in the community and still did our week of service with Bank of America and fed our frontline workers. And I think because of that, we received, a lot of goodwill in the community for reaching out and saying thank you to the frontline workers. We worked very closely with a lot of the African-American restaurants and caterers that were really suffering to buy meals from them to give to the frontline workers. And then as part of voting, we worked very hard during the pandemic to make sure that we can make the Spectrum Center an early voting site, make it a place that everyone in our community could come out and feel safe, that this was a safe haven to cast their vote and their ballot. And then we partnered with Novant to make sure we were a mass vaccination site. Jesse Curitan and his team in partnership with others to make sure that this was a place that people that were due to have their vaccine were able to get here, be able to do it in a very safe manner. And it was phenomenal to see our venue transformed into an early vaccination site on 2 different Saturdays around our home basketball schedule. But as an organization, we pivoted right at the beginning of the pandemic to the 2021 season, next season. Told all of our season ticket holders and sponsors, we likely wouldn't have any fans in the building during the pandemic if we played at all. And they understood and they worked with us. And most of them allowed us to roll over their season ticket holder funds to this upcoming season. And it was really all about communication. And again, our senior leadership team did a phenomenal job in staying connected with our customers, with the community, with our teammates, everybody internally. And then last but not least, one of the things that our owner, Michael, did, which was not the norm, was he vowed from day one that he was not going to lay off, he was not going to furlough or cut anyone's salary during the pandemic. And so we kept every one of our full-time employees employed at their full salary. Michael also agreed when the pandemic first hit and we had the rest of the prior season left to play, 10 games and a bunch of concerts booked, he agreed to pay all of our part-time staff for those games they were scheduled to work, and the concerts that they had been scheduled to work, paid them their salaries or their wages as if we hosted those games and concerts. So again, it starts with our leader, our owner, who made the financial commitment to support our people. I think that has allowed us, when we brought our teammates back for the first time this week, just ironically yesterday, we brought our teammates back into the Spectrum Center full time to work. I think everyone's come back in fully energized because they appreciate just how loyal and how supportive our owner has been during this period to all of us, as we all have suffered with our families.
Well, we promised a 1 hour deal. This has been a great conversation that I hate to end, but we have to let you go. I will say this is a great compliment that you might not take it this way, but I never perceived you as being an egghead. But you're a very bright guy.
Joe, I'm gonna take that as a compliment. I'm just a little country lawyer, just trying to keep things moving.
You've done well for a country lawyer.
No, it's been an absolute honor for me to join you all. So appreciate everything that you bring and do for our community and your support over the years. And anytime that you guys invite me back, I would love to be back and join you again. Just make sure I come before Gene Woods next time.
Well, I'll tell you, I didn't know Gene was a guitarist until after we ended that interview, but you live and learn going to the C-suites.
No, he's awesome. He's awesome.
He is. Thank you again. We appreciate your time, and we will have you back. I can promise you that. This was a great interview.
That'd be great. Thanks so much, and thanks for having me.
Right.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Fred. That was awesome there. Just want to go over some of our past guest speakers we had. You can view the recordings on our website.
Okay.
We had Chris Jackson with Goodwills of Southern Piedmont, Gene Woods, as well as we had Thomas Scythe with North Carolina Community College. So take a moment and go to our website and visit to see the past conversations we've had.
I will. I know Thomas from his time in Governor McCrory's office, and I know Gene. And so I will definitely go back and take a look. And Tunde, who is awesome as well. You're going to enjoy his conversation.
Yes.
Blue Cross and Blue Shield are a great partner of ours, and I was honored to be asked to sit on a diversity and inclusion panel with Tunde for his teammates at Blue Cross and Blue Shield several months ago.
And we're looking forward to that one too. It's going to be good. But these have been great learning experiences dealing with all of you in the C-suite conversations. And again, we appreciate your time today.
Yeah, absolutely. Please tell Tunde I say hello. Okay.
I'll do it.
Thank you.
Take care.
Okay.
All right. Bye-bye.
And also we have upcoming event Ride in a Rail to Revival or Ruin, July 29th, and mark your calendar for Tunde Satunde, with President CEO of Blue Cross Blue Shield of North Carolina. That will be C-Suite's conversation on Tuesday, August 10th. And look for upcoming Sleepless in the Carolinas on our website for future webinars. Feel free to give us a call at the Charlotte Post. Visit our websites, thecharlottepost.com and the Triangle Tribune. We'd like to thank everyone for joining us this afternoon for our C-Suite conversation. Thank you.
Thank you.